Thank you very much for the opportunity to share some thoughts that are based on the work that we've been doing in the Human Development Report Office at UNDP, in a trilogy of reports that started with the 2019 Human Development Report. I hope that my reflections will be helpful in contributing to the theme of this session on revitalizing global development. So I should probably start by stating what human development is. Human development is about enabling people everywhere to live lives to their full potential. This is an approach that shifts the focus of attention when assessing progress or evaluating policies from means such as income to ends, well-being, standards of living, health and education, as captured, for instance, by our Human Development Index, but also something that is very important, human agency, people's ability to shape their lives. So as we started with the 2019 Human Development Report, a key concern at the time was that we were celebrating record achievements in standards of living, health and education, as well as unprecedented technological breakthroughs in many areas, but there were still huge gaps between what people could potentially achieve and the reality of curtailed and deprived lives in so many places. So this reflected the context of persistent inequalities in human development. The key finding of that report was that when it came to changes to the dynamics of inequality, there were actually two different patterns that were emerging. On the one hand, inequalities in things like child mortality, primary school enrollment rates, and access to cell phones were actually shrinking. And that was the reason why metrics of progress like our own Human Development Index, which focused on basic capabilities, were actually showing on average steady improvements at the global level. But at the same time, on the other hand, we found that inequalities in other aspects of human development, what we call enhanced capabilities, things like life expectancy at older ages, enrollment in higher education, and access to broadband internet, inequalities were actually widening. And these were the aspects that were becoming more important for people to seize on the opportunities of the 21st century. So even with convergence in basic capabilities, there was a divergence in these enhancing capabilities that was fueling a sense of discontent. But in addition to inequality, something else was brewing, we felt: insecurity. We were also confronted with much evidence suggesting that many people around the world were unsettled about their lives, some seemingly losing the narratives of their lives, anxious about the future. And indeed, in our latest Human Development Report, we found that perceptions of insecurity were pervasive. Even before the war in Ukraine and COVID-19, our estimates suggest that 6 out of every 7 people around the world were feeling insecure about some aspects of their life. Some of the highest increases in perceptions of human security were actually taking place in countries with very high levels of the Human Development Index. And we know that after COVID and the war in Ukraine, these perceptions have gotten even worse. So our latest Human Development Report showed how this is reflected in pervasive challenges in mental well-being and mental health. But it's not only about perceptions. For the first time on record, the Global Human Development Index dropped 2 years in a row in 2020 and 2021. In fact, the Global Human Development Index in 2021 is at the same level as it was in 2016, when there was a renewed sense of hope in development, in climate change, or in the ability to address climate change after the Paris Agreement and the adoption of the 23 Agenda for Sustainable Development, both of which happened in 2015. In those 2 years, between 2020 and 2021, 9 out of every 10 countries around the world witnessed a decline in the Human Development Index. Previous record was 2 out of every 10 in the aftermath of the global financial crisis. So what can account for this situation of insecurity and reversals, unprecedented reversals in the Human Development Index? In our latest Human Development Report, we argued that this was in part because we're living in what we call the new uncertainty complex. Sometimes this is described also as a polycrisis, a context of a polycrisis. So this is a world that is not necessarily more uncertain than in the past, but one where uncertainty has new characteristics, and we identified in particularly three novel layers of uncertainty. The first is associated with the new planetary reality of the Anthropocene, which is something that geologists and other scientists are discussing, that could be actually a new geological epoch, manifested in challenges that range from climate change to the biodiversity loss. The Anthropocene is making for a more dangerous world where these dangers interact and exacerbate in many cases inequalities. This contributed to a context in which there's disparity between those that contribute to the dangers, to the planetary pressures that are driving, for instance, climate change, and those that are suffering the consequences, which often are the ones contributing the least. Now, this new and unprecedented layer is compounded by and interacts with two other layers of uncertainty. On the one hand, political polarization, and on the other, the social and economic transformations of the transition to sustainability in the more digital world. Now, on political polarization, I spoke earlier about how people feel increasingly insecure. In the report, we document that people that feel more insecure tend to trust others less and are also more likely to support politically extreme positions. As a result, global levels of trust are the lowest on record, and political polarization is increasing in many parts of the world, both within and across countries. Digital technologies add fuel to this flame, contributing to dividing societies even more in many instances. And as a result, it seems that it's more difficult for people to come together to address shared challenges, be it within countries or internationally, precisely at a time when we need to pursue collective responses the most. On the digital transition and transformation to sustainability, we argued that it brings a combination of threat and opportunity. And this helps to illustrate a broader point that we make in the report, that uncertainty can also be an opportunity. Uncertainty can shift the reference points about what's possible and desirable. It can open up opportunities for new and bold policies and unprecedented breakthroughs. We saw in the response to COVID-19 that many challenges, many fits and starts, and glaring and persisting inequalities, how, for instance, national community countries were able to develop new vaccines. Many countries were able to expand social protection, and in many societies, new social norms led people to change their behavior, for instance, on things like using masks. So what to do, and with this I'll come to the end. Our latest Human Development Report argues that uncertainty can also be an opportunity, as I just noted, but it's difficult to harness uncertainty for positive change if people feel threatened. So the report proposes greater expansion of policies to make people feel more secure by enhancing investment, insurance, and innovation, what we call the 3 I's. Investment above all in people, but also in those global public goods like pandemic preparedness, on which we are becoming more and more dependent. Insurance to protect people from the ups and downs of a volatile world, encompassing both market insurance, but also social insurance. And innovation, harnessing technology to expand what humans can do, as opposed to replacing them. But innovation also in social and institutional aspects of life. Beyond policies, the report draws on insights on how the social context shapes and can be shaped to drive more cooperative choices. From social norms to the evolving narratives that shape so many social, economic, and political decisions, shifts can happen in what are socially acceptable practices and what is valued in society. Social movements often can drive this type of broader social change. Now, to do all of this, and this is the key message of our latest Human Development Report, it's important to double down on human development. This means enhancing people's health and education, but also giving them more autonomy and a greater sense of control over their lives. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development remains our aspiration, and advancing human development can become the means to navigate uncertainty, to bring us back towards a path of progress to the SDGs. Thank you.